My name is Eltahawy, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and my declaration of faith with which I begin everything is patriarchy. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very excited to be speaking with you.
I'm so glad that you are including women's rights as a main pillar of the revolution, because as you'll see throughout our discussion, the revolution is nothing without feminism. So
that's great. Could you give us just a quick recap of how you got involved in the revolution in Egypt?
In 1989, was when I became a news reporter. And for years, I covered and followed very closely the Hosni Mubarak regime. And in doing so, I gained gut knowledge of what it was like and what it was like to follow the human rights violations of this regime, how those human rights violations particularly targeted women, and what conversations were allowed and weren't allowed.
In your 2012 piece entitled "Why Do They Hate Us?", you wrote something that really stuck to me, which was, "Until the rage shifts from the oppressors in our presidential palaces to the oppressors on our streets and in our homes, our revolution has not even begun." Can you please expand on that a little bit?
One of the things that for me was a turning point that we could never ever walk away from was less than a month after Hosni Mubarak was forced to step down because of January the 25th, the military junta decided, no, you all have to go home now, the revolution is finished. And they sent soldiers in who cleared Tahrir Square, and they arrested activists and they tortured them in the Egyptian Museum, and then took them to a military prison where they continued to torture them. And at the military prison, the military basically raped, sexually assaulted Egyptian female revolutionaries under the guise of protecting the military from being accused of sexual assault. But the fact that this happened to female revolutionaries less than a month after the revolution pushed our dictator of 30 years to step down, for me, was the red line. What revolution worth its salt sees its revolutionaries being assaulted like this and doesn't do anything about it? And you know what? No one did anything about it. I'm still enraged when I tell you about this. And so once that happened and I saw that people were not being outraged, and I saw that when I was outraged on social media, people were writing to me saying, "Hey, Mana, why are you so outraged? Don't you know that Egyptian families subject their daughters to virginity tests anyway? So the family subjects you to sexual assault through a virginity test. The regime subjects you to a sexual assault through a virginity test. Same. And this is where patriarchy comes in. This is where, so then I started thinking about my idea of the trifecta of misogyny. And the trifecta of misogyny is the misogyny that connects the state, the street, and the home together. Because after these sexual assaults that basically went by unpunished and no one was held to account, I began to say, look, without feminism and without feminism at the core, this revolution will fail. And then some of my male comrades would say, Mona, come on, we'll get to you. We have to release the political prisoners. We have to get rid of military rule. We have to fix education. We have to fix the environment. We have to fix everything. And then we'll come for the women, as if women are some kind of special interest group that we're going to sit here and, patiently wait, and then the revolution will remember us, despite the fact that we were part and parcel of the revolution. We had our arms broken for the revolution. We were raped for the revolution. We were killed for the revolution. We were disappeared for the revolution. But then we had to go home and cook and clean and be good girls, and then wait for the men of the revolution to come and liberate us. And that's why I came up with this paragraph that you're reading to me, because I said, if you, the men of the revolution, believe that the state oppresses everyone, and it does, because the state oppresses men and women, you have to know that the state, together with the street, which is public space, and the home, which is private space, together oppress women. And that's the trifecta of misogyny. So unless we take the rage that the revolution directed at the state, the presidential palace, and direct it at the street and at the home, unless we dismantle the trifecta of misogyny, our revolution will remain what it is, which is a cisgender dick-swinging contest in which one group of men fights another group of men. And if that's the revolution, then that revolution. That is not my revolution, because my revolution liberates us all.
If you could give an advice to women on the ground now, many of whom are still in danger of being arrested if they're involved in human rights project or, you know, sexually harassed on the streets or at home, what would your advice be to them to kind of struggle through it as someone who has seen the worst of what a police state can do?
During the Kefaya protests and in May of 2005, when Egypt held a referendum about the way that we elect our president, female journalists and activists were targeted and for sexual assault by police in uniform and thugs who were working for the police out of uniform. And there was a massive protest there was a small protest, because protests back then weren't so massive. And women very courageously held up the clothes that were ripped off their bodies to show what had happened. And they posted videos and pictures of what the assaults that they were subjected to online, on blogs and on various online fora. And several of them went on satellite television in Egypt, which was a historic moment, because I remember my relatives telling me they'd never seen anything in their lives. Several of those women who were sexually assaulted by the Mubarak regime went on satellite TV and said, "This happened to me." And this movement began called The Street Is Ours, where women began to go to protest more and more visibly, because what the Mubarak regime was doing was they were using sexual assault to terrify women, but this is more important now, or just as important rather. They were using women's bodies as proxy battlefields between the regime and their families and male activists. Because what the regime was doing was, it was sending a signal to their family, their father, their patriarch. So one patriarch with a big P was addressing the patriarch with a small p, saying, you know what, if you don't keep your women at home, we're going to rape and sexually assault them. And so for those women to go on satellite TV and say, this happened to me, and they were not ashamed to say it, was revolutionary in and of itself. And I interviewed a young woman at the time who said to me, this was her moment of politicization. And I'm saying this to you because it's connected to women today in Egypt. She said to me, in 2005, when I saw those women exposing what the Mubarak regime did to them, I sat there and I thought, you know what? I don't control anything in my life. My parents tell me what to study at university. My parents tell me who to marry. My boss at work tells me I can't go out to join a protest. I don't own my own body. I don't own my life. What the f I own? If even the one thing that I'm supposed to own, my body, the regime sexually assaults. And she said she started joining protests then because that was her moment of politicization. So the Mubarak regime used systematic sexual violence in 2005. Systematic sexual violence was used against women in 2011. I was sexually assaulted, not just had my arms broken. And a feminist group in Egypt told me at least 12 women in the protests that I joined and in which I was assaulted, they were also sexually assaulted in an identical manner in the way that I was. But none of these 12 women have wanted to speak, either because their families silenced them or they were too ashamed to speak. And now we're seeing what is happening to Egyptian women who are either exposing sexual violence, as they have been on social media, or who are being sent to prison because they're popular on TikTok, or they post a picture of themselves dressed in quote unquote indecent clothes by the pyramid. So these women right now are being politicized and understanding how the patriarchal regime in Egypt and the patriarchy at home are, again, trifecta of State Street and misogyny. The Mubarak regime, now the Sisi regime, has sent to prison TikTok women, as they're called. These are women with massive platforms on TikTok, and they're saying they're doing this in the name of the Egyptian family's honor, right? Or Egyptian family values, yeah? These are mostly working class women. So this is now gender and class together. At the same time as they're imprisoning these women who are very popular on TikTok, the Sisi regime is also either imprisoning or ignoring women who have exposed sexual violence. And they're using social media to do that. So this is a moment now where my advice to Egyptian women is to recognize that you now are the vanguard of the feminist revolution that we have been waiting for. So our entire conversation now, you and I, Gaia, is to bring us to this moment that we are now finally on the threshold of the feminist revolution. because now we can see how state, street, and home come together so well to basically use our bodies to fight over, for each of them fighting for power. And all revolutions, most definitely including Egypt's, will fail unless this feminist revolution is understood to be the heart of the revolution. So my advice for Egyptian women now is fight, fight, and fight. You will be hurt, yes. You might go to prison, yes. You will be killed, maybe. But that's what happens in a revolution, because there is no revolution that happens without a price. Because no one is going to come and liberate you. You have to liberate yourself. We can't protest in Egypt right now, but we can use social media. In the run-up to the 2011 revolution, social media was really powerful as a form of organizing, as a way of finding other comrades and forming solidarity. Now, social media is a way to organize, find others, comrades. And I now say that we can't protest on the streets in Egypt, but I consider social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, anything, as basically virtual streets. So instead of marching on the streets of Cairo or Aswan or Alexandria, march on the virtual streets of social media, because they are just as real, they are just as powerful, and own this revolution, because Egypt needs a feminist revolution.
That's beautiful and encouraging. My last question to you would be, do you regret taking part in this? Are you sad that the revolution happened because it turned certain conditions worse than they were before?
I'm sad and enraged at the murders that have happened, at all the people we loved and who are our friends that we lost. I'm sad and enraged that the jails of Sisi are filled with at least 60,000 political prisoners. I'm sad and enraged that since the revolutions, Sisi has built more prisons than schools and hospitals. And I'm sad and enraged that he took away the streets. The street will always be ours. But I'm never, ever, and I will never, ever be sad at being a part of this revolution, because the revolution in Egypt was the dream of my life. I waited for that revolution for more than half my life, you know? So I am thrilled and excited and honored and so happy that I was a part of this revolution. And I will not stop. I will fight forever until we liberate Egypt from the regime, from patriarchy, from all forms of oppression. I will not stop fighting until everyone in Egypt is free. I will not stop fighting until Egypt is free. And I will not stop fighting because I know we will be free. This is a really difficult anniversary because things are not great. But I know that one day we will be free, and I know that one of the reasons that we will be free is because of what happened in 2011.
That's great. I'm so glad you're ending on a hopeful note, because I think a lot of people want to hear some hope during this difficult time. Thank you so much for speaking with us. It's been a real honor, pleasure on my part.
Thank you, Gaia. Now, good luck editing this, because I talked and talked and talked. So good luck. I don't envy you.